Snow fell thick and heavy across the streets of London, blanketing the city in white. The kind of snow that muffled sounds, erased boundaries, and made the world feel as though it existed in a fragile bubble. Inside the Gilded Oak, a high-end restaurant that prided itself on exclusivity, the tension was so thick it felt almost tangible. The billionaire, Tariq Al-Mansour, had already reached the door, his security team flanking him like silent, iron walls. Every step he took seemed to suck the warmth out of the air. He had just purchased a restaurant's mortgage, purely to shut it down, because the service had been utterly intolerable. The manager, Gavin Mercer, was hyperventilating, his face flushed red as he attempted to apologize, stammering words that fell flat in the cold, judgmental eyes of Tariq. The chef, a rotund man with sweat streaking down his temple, was silently praying that nothing else could go wrong tonight. And the entire dining room, filled with patrons who had paid handsomely for the illusion of refinement, had gone silent, sensing that disaster was imminent. Amid this chaos, Hannah Dawson, a quiet, trembling waitress who had barely spoken all night, stepped forward. She didn't apologize in English. She didn't beg for her job. She looked Tariq in the eye and whispered 6 words in a dialect so rare, so specific to his childhood village, that the billionaire froze as if seeing a ghost. The words didn't just save the restaurant. They ignited a spark that would unravel secrets buried for decades. The humidity in the Gilded Oak's kitchen was oppressive. Lettuce wilted instantly under the warm fluorescent lights, and the stench of overworked staff mixed with the faint tang of truffle oil and sautéing lamb. Hannah wiped a smear from her cuff. 3 weeks. 3 weeks she had worked invisibly, silently, being scolded, belittled, and dismissed. Gavin Mercer, the general manager, seemed to have taken a personal vendetta against her, his sharp cologne smelling of stale ambition and desperation. "Table 4 is empty," he hissed, snapping his fingers dangerously close to her face. "Do you know who is sitting there in 5 minutes?" Hannah kept her eyes lowered. "Mr. Al-Mansour, sir." "Tariq Al-Mansour," Gavin corrected, his voice cracking. "He owns half of Dubai's shipping lanes, and he's in a mood that could strip paint off a wall. If his water glass drops below halfway, you're fired. If he has to ask for the menu, you're fired. If you breathe too loudly near his falafel, Hannah, I will personally see to it that you never work in the city again." Hannah swallowed, clutching the picture-perfect glass of filtered water she carried. She needed this job. Student loans from her linguistics degree were piling up, medical bills for her mother's dialysis stacked like icy slabs on the counter of their tiny Queens apartment. She didn't belong here. She belonged in libraries or archives, translating documents and texts. But translation work was sporadic. The Gilded Oak paid enough to keep the lights on, if only barely. At exactly 8 p.m., the heavy oak door swung open. Silence fell. Tariq entered, not merely a man, but a force of nature, taller than the tabloid suggested, clad in a navy bespoke suit that cost more than Hannah's entire education. Flanked by 2 silent, immovable security guards, his presence sucked the oxygen from the room. Gavin practically ran to the door, bowing so low it seemed physically painful. "Mr. Al-Mansour, an honor. We have the private alcove prepared." Tariq ignored him, gliding past as if the manager were a decorative potted plant. He seated himself at table 4, eyes fixed on his watch. "Whiskey," he said, voice deep, gravelly, an accent forged from elite Swiss boarding schools on the hard edges of the Gulf. "Blue label, neat. And tell your chef I want the lamb. Overcooked, I leave immediately." Chaos followed. Kevin, a waiter who normally relied on charm over competence, fumbled a crystal tumbler, spilling 3 ounces of amber liquid directly onto Tariq's navy trousers. The room went silent. Kevin paled, attempting to dab the liquid with a napkin. A fatal mistake. Tariq's voice cut through the room like a blade. "I was told this was the finest establishment in London. I see now I was lied to." Gavin's frantic pleas fell on deaf ears. Tariq stood, throwing the napkin down. "I am buying this building tomorrow. The first thing I will do is fire every incompetent person in this room. My lawyers will call you." It was over, or so it seemed. Hannah, clutching a basket of warm bread, watched Tariq storm toward the exit. Something about his stance, The tension in his shoulders was familiar. She had seen it before, years ago, living abroad with her father in the Levant. The look of a man surrounded by noise yet hearing only truth. Without thinking, she whispered, "Seti and Nishiak." Tarek froze. His hand on the door handle, knuckles white, he turned slowly. It wasn't just Arabic. It was a rare rural dialect of his grandmother, spoken by fewer than a few thousand people in the mountains between the Levant borders. "Sir, you forgot your key," she said. The figure of speech, a subtle way to say someone was leaving with unresolved business, struck him with a shock so visceral he barely moved. "Who said that?" he demanded. Gavin, panicking, lunged forward. "You stupid girl. What did you say to him?" Hannah's voice was steady. "I'm from here, but I lived in Dar al-Kamar as a child. My father was an archaeologist. Our housekeeper raised me more than my mother did. She spoke like you." Tarek's eyes narrowed. "The Haddad family?" Hannah nodded. The recognition in his face was immediate. Rage melted into a predatory curiosity. The manager was dismissed from his mind. Tarek turned to Hannah. "You serve me. Only you. If anyone else approaches, I buy the building and turn it into a parking lot." And just like that, Hannah was no longer invisible. She led Tarek back to table 4, cleaned the wet cloth herself, poured him fresh water. Each movement, each word, echoed the trust and training of the woman who had raised her, Layla Haddad. "Layla, she was my nanny. She taught me everything," Hannah whispered. Tarek's breath caught. "She was my aunt, exiled. We were told she died. She died in Beirut 4 years ago. I was there," Hannah said. The billionaire, the tycoon, the man who could crush entire companies, was reduced to grief. The mask slipped. He was no longer a predator. He was family, seeking answers. "You're not a waitress. You are a loose end," Tarek said. "I'm just trying to pay my rent," Hannah replied, steadying herself. "Trouble found you," Tarek said, showing her phone with incriminating evidence of Arthur Pellington's schemes. "Get your coat. You are done serving food. You are coming with me." Hannah followed him through the rain-slicked streets, to a van, to a safe house perched on the cliffs of Dover. Inside the concrete bunker, surrounded by walls that felt as cold and impenetrable as Tarek's gaze, they opened the tin box. Papers, a flash drive, and a silver family ring. Each item told a story, unraveling decades of deceit. Pellington had stolen Tarek's family, murdered his father, and hunted the rightful heir Omar, a 12-year-old boy hidden in a Swiss boarding school. As the flash drive played a video of Layla revealing Pellington's crimes, alarms blared. Their location had been compromised. Gunfire erupted. They ran through the bunker, dodging grenades and bullets, the wind and rain their only cover. Hannah, drawing on every lesson taught by Isla, helped Omar escape down a cliffside ladder as Tarek confronted Pellington's men, sacrificing himself to buy them time. Hannah fled across the storm-lashed cliffs, ferrying herself across the English Channel, enduring hunger, exhaustion, and cold. Every step was driven by determination to protect Omar, the true heir, and preserve the legacy of the Haddad family. Eventually, she arrived at the prestigious Institut La Rose in the Swiss Alps, finding Omar and sneaking him out of school in disguise. Together, they made their way to London, armed with the tin box, the silver ring, and the evidence needed to reclaim Tarek's family and fortune. The Swiss Alps were merciless. Snow whipped across the mountain passes like shards of glass, the wind biting through every layer of clothing Hannah could carry. She clutched the tin box tightly, feeling its weight not just in metal but in history and responsibility. Omar, small but resilient, trudged beside her, his breath steaming in the cold air. Each step they took was a silent promise. To survive, to reclaim what was stolen, to honor the legacy of those who had sacrificed everything. The Institut La Rose loomed ahead, a sprawling fortress of stone and glass perched perilously on the edge of a cliff. Inside, students whispered legends of the Haddad family, never realizing the real danger lay in the present, in the shadows that Hannah and Omar now navigated. Security cameras blinked like electronic eyes, and patrolling guards were armed with more than just discipline. They carried the arrogance of power, assuming that a teenage boy and a seemingly ordinary young woman posed no threat. Hannah had learned patience from years of translation and observation. She led Omar through the service corridors, bypassing cameras, dodging motion sensors, and even leveraging the cleaning staff routines as cover. They paused in a utility closet, hearts pounding, listening as guards passed mere meters away. "Omar," Hannah whispered, "we're close. Stay quiet, stay focused." Omar nodded, his small hands gripping the silver family ring. It was a symbol of more than inheritance. It was a beacon of hope, the final piece connecting him to his family and his future. "I'm ready," he said. And Hannah believed him more than she believed in herself sometimes. Meanwhile, in London, Tarek was far from idle. Though separated from Hannah and Omar, he coordinated remotely, using encrypted lines and trusted allies. The Pellington Syndicate had deep roots in Europe, but Tarek had a network that rivaled their own. Each move was calculated, each action designed to protect his family's legacy while dismantling the criminal web that had haunted them for decades. Back in the Alps, the duo reached the headmaster's office. The heavy oak door was locked, but not impenetrable. Hannah retrieved a slender lockpick kit hidden in her coat pocket, an old skill learned from a childhood friend in Beirut. Her hands worked with precision, every click of the tumblers a note in a tense symphony of anticipation. The lock clicked open. They were inside. Inside, a wealth of documents and encrypted drives awaited. Hannah quickly located a hidden compartment beneath the desk. Inside was the master key to the vault, a place where Pellington had stored stolen assets, evidence, and most importantly, the accounts linking him to Tarek's family fortune. It was guarded by the latest biometric security, retinal scans, and encrypted passwords, but Hannah's linguistic and analytical skills turned the codes into a puzzle she could solve. Each step required patience, each calculation precision, until finally, the vault opened. Inside were stacks of documents, cash, gold bars, and digital storage devices. Omar gasped, realizing the magnitude of what they held. This is everything," he whispered. Hannah nodded, understanding the gravity of their task. But before they could begin the transfer, alarms blared. Pellington's men had tracked them. The escape was chaotic. Hannah and Omar moved quickly, grabbing only what was essential, weaving through snow-laden hallways, dodging guards who were faster and more prepared than anticipated. Gunfire echoed to the halls, shattering windows and sending shards of glass into the white snow outside. Omar fell once, but Hannah pulled him up, whispering fierce encouragement. "Keep moving. We're almost free." They reached a hidden side exit, sliding down a narrow chute that emptied into the frozen forest below. The snow swallowed them like a blanket, muffling sounds and hiding their tracks. They ran for hours, using terrain to their advantage, until finally they reached a secluded safe house Tarek had arranged on the outskirts of Geneva. Inside, they reunited with Tarek. His face, though relieved, was tense. "You did well," he said, gripping Hannah's shoulder. "But we're not done yet. Pellington will retaliate." Hannah, exhausted and frostbitten, nodded. "Then we end this once and for all." The final confrontation took place in Zurich, inside a glass-walled boardroom that overlooked the city. Pellington was there, smug and arrogant, surrounded by his loyal lieutenants. Tarek, Hannah, and Omar entered, carrying the evidence and digital proof of his crimes. The confrontation was less about physical violence and more about power, strategy, and exposure. Hannah presented the documents, the flash drives, and the silver ring. Every fraudulent transaction, every stolen asset, every life destroyed by your greed, it's all here, she said. Pellington laughed, dismissing her words, but Tarek activated a series of secure broadcasts, sending all evidence to Interpol, media outlets, and financial regulators worldwide. The smugness drained from Pellington's face as the walls closed in. "Your time is over," Tarek said coldly. "You cannot hide anymore." In the aftermath, the Al-Mansur Empire was restored. Omar was officially recognized as the heir, his future secured. Hannah was no longer a waitress but a trusted advisor, her skills in languages, analysis, and strategy recognized and rewarded. Tarek, ever the stoic protector, finally allowed himself a moment of relief, knowing that his family's legacy was safe. The snow that had started this journey fell again, this time silently, almost reverently. On the cliffs overlooking Dover, Hannah, Tark, and Omar stood together, watching the horizon. It was a moment of triumph, reflection, and quiet satisfaction. The world was still full of danger, deceit, and greed, but for the first time in decades, the Al-Mansour family had reclaimed their narrative. Hannah smiled at Omar, who clutched the silver ring with awe. "This is just the beginning," she said. Tark nodded, silent but approving, and as the snow continued to fall, it seemed to wash away the past, leaving only the promise of a future built on courage, intelligence, and unbreakable bonds.